Left ear, perfect hearing, crystal clear, battle ready. Right ear, completely deaf, silent, useless. That's what the medical report said about Private Jordan Hayes. That's what every commanding officer believed when they stamped unfit for combat deployment on his file. That's what the elite soldiers thought when they laughed at him struggling to hear briefings. They were all wrong, because while his right ear couldn't hear voices, couldn't hear music, couldn't hear the normal world, could hear something far more important. It could hear the electrical hum of buried explosives, could hear death waiting underground, and it was about to save every single one of them. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Veterans and Heroes Stories so you never miss these true tales of courage. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? The accident happened on a Tuesday. Private Jordan Hayes was 20 years old, 3 months into advanced infantry training, and he was good, better than good. His instructors said he had the instincts, that rare combination of awareness and reaction time that separated adequate soldiers from exceptional ones. He could read terrain like a book. He could sense danger before it announced itself. He moved through training exercises with a fluid precision that made veteran sergeants nod with approval. Then came the live fire exercise that changed everything. A flashbang detonated too close. Not close enough to kill, not close enough to leave visible scars, but close enough to destroy something that couldn't be seen on X-rays or CT scans. His right eardrum shattered. The delicate machinery of his inner ear collapsed like a building hit by an earthquake. The cochlear nerve, responsible for transmitting sound to his brain, suffered damage that 3 different specialists called catastrophic and irreversible. When Jordan woke up in the medical tent, the world had split in 2. His left ear worked perfectly. He could hear the doctor's voice, the beep of monitors, the distant sound of training exercises continuing outside. His right ear heard nothing. Complete, absolute silence. A void where sound used to live. "I'm sorry, Private Hayes," the doctor said, and Jordan could hear the sympathy in his voice with his good ear. "The damage is permanent. You'll have 50% hearing loss for the rest of your life." Jordan didn't cry. He didn't argue. He just stared at the ceiling and felt his future dissolving like smoke. The medical board took 6 weeks to make their decision. 6 weeks of tests, evaluations, and sympathetic looks from people who had already made up their minds. Unfit for combat deployment. The words were stamped in red across his file like a brand, like a sentence. "You can still serve," they told him. "Administrative roles, logistics support, training coordination. You'll have a good career." But Jordan hadn't joined the military for a good career. He joined to be a soldier, a real soldier. The kind who walked into danger and brought his brothers home alive. Now that door was closed. Permanently. Jordan refused to accept it quietly. He applied to Ranger School. Rejected. Hearing disability incompatible with program requirements. He applied to Special Forces selection. Rejected. Unable to meet medical standards. He applied to Marine Recon. Rejected. Don't waste our time. He applied to airborne training. Rejected. Safety concerns. He applied to Air Assault School. Rejected. Communication limitations. He applied to Sniper School. Rejected. Audio perception critical to role. He applied to Combat Engineer training. Rejected. IED detection requires full sensory capability. 7 applications. 7 rejections. 7 variations of the same message. "You're broken. We don't want you." The other soldiers noticed. Of course they noticed. "Hey, half here!" Someone shouted across the mess hall one evening. "Did you not hear me? Or are you just ignoring me?" Laughter rippled through the room. Jordan kept eating, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on his tray. "I'm serious, man," the soldier continued, emboldened by his audience. "How do they expect you to watch anyone's back when you can't even hear them calling for help?" More laughter. Louder this time. A corporal from the table next to Jordan leaned over. "You know what they should do? Give you a desk job. Maybe answer phones." "Oh wait." He grinned. "You'd need 2 working ears for that." The mess hall erupted. Jordan stood slowly, picked up his tray, and walked out. He didn't look back. He didn't respond. He'd learned that responding only gave them more ammunition. But inside, something was hardening. Not bitterness, not anger, something colder, more focused, determination. If they wouldn't let him prove himself through official channels, he'd prove himself anyway. Somehow, 6 months after his injury, Jordan was assigned to Forward Operating Base Kushmand in Afghanistan. Not as a combat soldier, as a logistics coordinator. His job was simple: track supply convoys, manage inventory, coordinate transport schedules. Important work, necessary work, but not the work he'd trained for. The combat soldiers at FOB Kushmand treated him exactly as he expected. Politely, distantly, like furniture that occasionally needed to be acknowledged but never truly seen. Sergeant First Class Marcus Reeves was different. Reeves was a combat engineer with 15 years of experience, 3 deployments, and a reputation for being harder than coffin nails. He had a face like weathered leather and eyes that missed nothing. He found Jordan in the supply tent one afternoon, cross-referencing manifests with the quiet efficiency that had become Jordan's trademark. "Hayes," Reeves said. His voice was gravel and smoke. Jordan turned, instinctively angling his left ear toward the sergeant. "Yes, Sergeant. You applied to combat engineer training. 3 times. It wasn't a question." Jordan nodded anyway. "Why?" Jordan set down his clipboard. "Because it's important work. Because IEDs kill more soldiers than firefights. Because someone needs to do it. Not because you want to prove something? I don't need to prove anything, Sergeant. I just want to do the job I'm capable of doing." Reeves studied him for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He pulled a small device from his pocket. It looked like a modified metal detector, smaller, more specialized. "You know what this is?" Jordan recognized it immediately. /PSS-14. Ground-penetrating mine detector. "Smart kid." Reeves set it on the table between them. "These things save lives. But they're not magic. They can't detect everything. Some IEDs are buried too deep. Some use materials that don't register. Some are just hidden too well. I know. What you might not know," Reeves continued, "is that the best IED detectors aren't machines. They're people. Soldiers with instincts. Soldiers who can read terrain, who notice when something's wrong before they can explain why." Jordan waited. He knew where this was going, and he didn't like it. "I've read your file," Reeves said. "Before your injury, your instructors said you had the best situational awareness they'd ever seen. Said you could sense danger like you had a sixth sense. That was before. Maybe." Reeves picked up the detector. "Or maybe losing one sense sharpened the others. You ever think about that?" Jordan hadn't. He'd been too busy mourning what he'd lost to consider what he might have gained. "I want you on a convoy," Reeves said. "Day after tomorrow. Route clearance patrol through the Tangi Valley. 3 vehicles, 12 men, high-risk area." "Sergeant, I'm not cleared for. I'm not asking you to fight. I'm asking you to watch, to observe, to tell me if you notice anything the equipment misses." Jordan stared at him. "Why?" "Because 47 men are going to roll through that valley whether you're there or not. And I'd rather have someone with your instincts watching the road than someone who thinks a metal detector makes them invincible." It wasn't an order. Not officially. But it felt like something more important than an order. Felt like a second chance. "I'll be ready, Sergeant." Reeves nodded once and turned to leave. Then he paused at the tent entrance. "Hayes, don't make me regret this." "I won't, Sergeant." The Tangi Valley was beautiful in the way that dangerous things often are. Steep mountains rose on both sides of the dirt road, their peaks sharp against the pale morning sky. The valley floor was a patchwork of dried riverbeds, scattered vegetation, and centuries-old rock formations that looked like the bones of sleeping giants. It was also one of the most dangerous stretches of road in Afghanistan. IEDs were planted here weekly. Ambushes were common. 3 convoys had been hit in this valley in the last 2 months. 14 soldiers killed, 23 wounded. Jordan sat in the second vehicle, a mine-resistant ambush-protected truck that felt both impossibly sturdy and terrifyingly vulnerable. Sergeant Reeves sat across from him, checking equipment with methodical precision. The lead vehicle carried the route clearance team, soldiers with metal detectors, ground-penetrating radar, and years of experience reading terrain for hidden threats. The third vehicle carried infantry support, ready to respond if the convoy was attacked. 47 men total. 47 lives depending on training, equipment, and luck. Jordan's role was simple. Watch and report anything unusual. That was it. He wasn't expected to find anything the professionals missed. He was there to learn, to observe, to prove he could function in a combat environment despite his disability. At least that's what everyone thought. The convoy rolled out at 0600 hours, engines rumbling, radios crackling with check-ins and coordinates. Jordan pressed his left ear against the radio headset, compensating automatically for his dead right ear. He developed a technique over the past 6 months, turning his head constantly, using his good ear like a radar dish to capture sounds from all directions. It wasn't perfect. He missed things. Background conversations, warnings shouted from his right side, radio chatter when multiple people spoke at once. But he'd adapted. Humans are good at that. The first hour was routine. The lead vehicle moved slowly, sweeping the road with detectors, calling out clear zones, marking suspicious areas for closer inspection. Jordan watched through the reinforced window, studying the terrain with the same intensity he'd brought to training exercises 2 years ago, back when his future was different. He noticed the way shadows fell across the road, creating dark patches that could hide disturbed earth. He noted the patterns of vegetation, looking for spots where plants had been cut or moved. He tracked the flight patterns of birds, which often avoided areas where humans had recently disturbed the ground. Old habits, old instincts. They were 3 kilometers into the valley when Jordan felt it. Not heard, felt. A sensation in his right ear. The dead one. The useless one. It wasn't pain. It wasn't sound in any conventional sense. It was pressure. Vibration. Like standing next to a generator running at a frequency just below human hearing. Jordan frowned. He'd experienced phantom sensations in his deaf ear before, the brain's attempt to fill the void where sound used to be. Usually it was meaningless static, neural noise with no real source. But this felt different, more structured, more intentional. He keyed his radio with his left hand. Sergeant Reeves. Go ahead, Hayes. My right ear. The dead one. I'm feeling something. There was a pause. Feeling what? I don't know how to describe it. Pressure. Vibration. Like there's a frequency I can sense but not hear. Another pause, longer this time. Jordan could imagine the look on Reeves' face. Skepticism mixed with concern that his experimental observer might be having a psychological episode. Can you localize it? Reeves asked finally. Jordan closed his eyes, trying to focus on the sensation. It was faint, barely perceptible, like trying to grab smoke. Ahead, he said slowly. Maybe 50 meters? It's hard to tell. Lead vehicle, Reeves called over the command net. Halt and sweep. Unknown sensor indication from position 2. The convoy stopped. The lead vehicle's route clearance team dismounted and began sweeping the area ahead with their detectors, moving in careful patterns, checking and rechecking the ground. Jordan watched, the strange pressure in his right ear remaining constant. Steady. Persistent. After 10 minutes, the team leader called back. Negative contact. Road is clear. No metallic signatures, no ground disturbance, no chemical indicators. Whatever your observer felt, it's not here. Jordan felt the weight of skeptical eyes turning toward him. Maybe I was wrong, he said quietly to Reeves. But the sergeant was watching him with an expression Jordan couldn't quite read. Or maybe, Reeves said slowly, their equipment can't detect what you're sensing. The convoy continued forward. The pressure in Jordan's right ear faded as they passed the 50-meter mark, disappearing completely after another 100 meters. False alarm. Neural ghost. Phantom sensation. Whatever you wanted to call it. Jordan said nothing. He'd already made himself look foolish once. No need to compound it. But 20 minutes later, it happened again. The same pressure, the same vibration, stronger this time, more insistent. Jordan's hand moved to his radio before his conscious mind had fully processed what he was sensing. Contact, right ear, same sensation, stronger. This time, Reeves didn't hesitate. Lead vehicle, halt. Full sweep protocol. The convoy stopped. The route clearance team deployed again. Their movements professional but tinged with frustration. They'd already swept this road 3 hours ago. They'd found nothing. They swept again. Metal detectors humming. Ground-penetrating radar painting pictures of what lay beneath the packed earth. Nothing. Still negative, the team leader reported. Road is clear, but Jordan could feel it. The pressure was building, like someone was pressing against his right ear from the inside. Not painful, but impossible to ignore. It's there, he said. I can feel it. Reeves studied him for a long moment. Then he made a decision that violated protocol, common sense, and probably several regulations. I'm going out there, Reeves said. Sergeant. Stay here, Hayes. That's an order. Reeves dismounted and walked forward, leaving the armored vehicle behind. He moved to the spot where Jordan had indicated the sensation was strongest and knelt down. From the vehicle, Jordan watched through his window, the pressure in his right ear now so strong it felt like a physical weight. Reeves pulled out a small knife and began carefully scraping away the top layer of dirt. Not digging, just exposing. 30 seconds later, he stopped, straightened, keyed his radio. His voice was very, very calm. We have an IED, pressure plate trigger, no metallic components, buried 18 inches deep with polymer casing. The words hit the convoy like a shockwave. How did you? The route clearance leader began. Hayes felt it, Reeves interrupted. With his deaf ear. Silence on the radio. The kind of silence that comes when something impossible has just become real. The IED was carefully neutralized by the explosive ordnance disposal team that arrived 30 minutes later. They documented everything. The non-metallic construction that had defeated the detectors, the careful burial that had left no visible ground disturbance, the pressure plate trigger that would have detonated when a vehicle's weight pressed down on it. This is sophisticated work, the EOD tech said, photographing the device from multiple angles. This would have killed everyone in your lead vehicle. Maybe the second vehicle too, depending on blast pattern. Reeves turned to Jordan. How? I don't know, Jordan admitted, but I can still feel it. Fainter now that it's been moved, but it's there. Like a frequency. Can you feel anything else? Jordan closed his eyes, turning his head slowly, using his deaf ear like a bizarre sensor that he was only beginning to understand. And then his eyes snapped open. Yes, he said. 2 more. 1 80 meters ahead. 1 30 meters behind us. The convoy didn't move for 3 hours while EOD swept the entire route based on Jordan's sensations. They found both devices exactly where he'd indicated. 3 IEDs. 3 sophisticated bombs that conventional detection had completely missed. 3 traps that would have killed most of the 47 men in that convoy. All detected by a soldier with a useless ear. The debriefing took place at FOB Cushman 6 hours after the convoy returned. Colonel Sarah Martinez commanded the base. She was a career officer with combat experience in 3 theaters and a reputation for valuing results over procedure. She sat at the head of the conference table, flanked by intelligence officers, medical personnel, and several very confused-looking explosive experts. Jordan sat across from them, Sergeant Reeves beside him. Private Hayes, Colonel Martinez began. I need you to explain what happened out there today. I wish I could, ma'am, Jordan replied honestly. I felt something in my right ear, the one that's supposed to be dead. Felt like pressure or vibration or maybe both. And wherever I felt it, there was an IED buried. You felt 3 separate devices. Yes, ma'am. Devices that our standard detection equipment completely missed. Yes, ma'am. Martinez turned to one of the medical officers. Dr. Zhao, you've reviewed Private Hayes' medical records. Explain this. Dr. Elizabeth Zhao was a neurology specialist who'd been studying combat-related injuries for 15 years. She looked both fascinated and deeply unsettled. Theoretically, she began slowly. When Private Hayes's eardrum was destroyed, it eliminated his ability to process sound waves in a conventional manner. However, the nerve damage he sustained might have created an unusual effect. English doctor, Martinez said. His damaged cochlear nerve might be hypersensitive to certain frequencies, specifically very low frequencies that exist below the threshold of normal human hearing. We call these infrasound frequencies. She pulled up a presentation on the conference room screen. Electronic devices emit electromagnetic fields. IEDs with electronic triggers emit low-frequency vibrations as their circuits maintain standby charge. These frequencies are typically around 3 to 20 Hz, well below the human hearing range of 20 to 20,000 Hz. But Private Hayes is hearing them, an intelligence officer said. Not hearing, Dr. Zhao corrected. Sensing. His damaged inner ear structure might be functioning less like a hearing organ and more like an extremely sensitive vibration detector. Like how some animals can sense earthquakes before they happen by detecting infrasound waves that humans can't perceive. You're saying his injury gave him a superpower, the intelligence officer said flatly. I'm saying his injury created a neurological anomaly that allows him to detect electromagnetic frequencies that our equipment can't consistently identify. Dr. Zhao turned to Jordan. Private Hayes, have you noticed any other unusual sensory experiences since your injury? Jordan thought about it. Sometimes I can feel electrical equipment nearby. Generators, radio transmitters. I thought it was just the vibration through the air. But maybe you've been sensing electromagnetic fields this entire time and didn't realize it. Dr. Zhao finished. Colonel Martinez leaned back in her chair, processing. Can this ability be replicated? Taught? Transferred to other soldiers? Unlikely, Dr. Zhao said. This appears to be the result of very specific nerve damage creating very specific hypersensitivity. You can't intentionally create it without risking severe permanent hearing loss, and even then, there's no guarantee the same effect would occur. So what you're telling me, Martinez said slowly, is that Private Hayes is the only soldier in the United States military who can detect IEDs by feeling them with his broken ear. In layman's terms, ma'am, yes. The room fell silent. Sergeant Reeves finally spoke. Colonel, with respect, I don't care how it works. What matters is that it does work. Hayes detected 3 sophisticated IEDs that our best equipment missed. 3 bombs that would have killed more than half my convoy. Your weakness just saved 47 lives, Martinez said, looking directly at Jordan. The words hung in the air like a benediction. Jordan felt something shift in his chest. Not pride exactly. Something deeper. Something that felt like redemption. The decision was made within 72 hours. Private Jordan Hayes was reassigned from logistics coordination to route clearance operations. Not as a soldier, as a specialist. An asset that no conventional training could produce and no technology could replicate. The official designation was Human Electronic Warfare Sensor Operator. Unofficially, the other soldiers started calling him Seeker. Not a mockery this time. A title. A designation that carried respect. The protocol was simple. Jordan would accompany high-risk convoys and patrols, using his unique sensory ability to sweep routes that conventional equipment couldn't clear. He wouldn't carry a rifle into combat. He wouldn't engage enemies directly. But he would detect the hidden threats that killed more soldiers than firefights ever could. The transformation happened quickly. The same soldiers who had mocked him 6 months ago now requested him specifically for their missions. Is Seeker available? They'd ask. Can we get Seeker on this route? Jordan worked with explosive ordnance disposal teams, learning to communicate what he sensed in terms they could use. Strong signal, shallow depth. Weak signal, possible false positive. Multiple signals, possible daisy chain configuration. He trained with combat engineers, developing a vocabulary for sensations that had no conventional language. Pressure became intensity. Vibration became signature. Direction became vector. He spent hours practicing, learning to differentiate between the electromagnetic signatures of different device types. Radio-controlled IEDs felt different from pressure plate triggers. Command wire detonations had a distinct character compared to timed explosives. His accuracy rate was extraordinary. In his first 3 months of active route clearance operations, Jordan detected 73 IEDs. Conventional equipment had flagged only 41 of them. The other 32 would have detonated without warning. The statistical analysis was sobering. Jordan's unique ability had prevented an estimated 217 casualties across 11 convoy operations. 217 soldiers who went home to their families instead of into flag-draped coffins. But success came with weight. Jordan began having nightmares. Not about combat. About the IEDs he might have missed. About the frequencies he might have failed to detect. About soldiers dying because his strange, inexplicable gift had failed at the critical moment. "You can't save everyone," Dr. Zhao told him during a mandatory psychological evaluation. "No detection method is perfect. Not equipment, not training, and not your ability. But if I miss something, then you miss something. And it won't be because you didn't try or because you didn't care or because you weren't good enough. It will be because you're human, and humans have limits." "My limits get people killed," Jordan said quietly. "Your limits are also what make you remarkable." Dr. Zhao looked at him with an expression that was equal parts sympathy and awe. "You were given something extraordinary, Jordan. Something that shouldn't exist. And instead of hiding from it or resenting it or letting it destroy you, you're using it to save lives. It doesn't feel extraordinary. It feels like I'm finally doing what I should have been doing all along." "Maybe," Dr. Zhao said, "or maybe you needed to lose something before you could find what you were truly capable of becoming." 6 months after his first route clearance operation, Jordan faced his greatest challenge. A high-value target convoy was scheduled to move through the Tangi Valley, the same valley where he'd first detected IEDs 6 months earlier. The convoy would carry a visiting senator, a delegation of military advisors, and enough political weight that failure would mean international headlines. Intelligence indicated that enemy forces knew about the convoy. They'd had weeks to prepare. The route had been swept 3 times by conventional equipment, 4 times by explosive detection dogs, twice by ground-penetrating radar teams. Everything came back clean. But intelligence also indicated that a sophisticated IED cell had been operating in the valley for months, using non-metallic components and advanced burial techniques that had defeated every detection method deployed against them. Colonel Martinez called Jordan into her office the night before the convoy was scheduled to roll. "I'm not going to order you to do this," she said. "Your ability isn't something I can command. It's something you have to choose to use." "I understand, ma'am. This is different from every other mission you've done. The threat level is extreme. The political pressure is enormous. If something goes wrong, ma'am, it won't be because I didn't try." Martinez studied him. "You've changed, Hayes. 6 months ago, you were a kid who'd been told he was broken. Now you're one of the most valuable assets in this theater." "I'm the same person I was 6 months ago, ma'am. I just have a better understanding of what I'm capable of." "That's not the same thing as being safe. Promise me you'll be careful." "I promise I'll do my job, ma'am. Careful doesn't always save lives." The convoy rolled out at dawn. 15 vehicles. 73 personnel. One senator who had no idea that his survival might depend on a 22-year-old soldier with a deaf ear and an impossible gift. Jordan sat in the command vehicle, eyes closed. His entire focus narrowed to the strange sensation that had become his primary sense over the past months. The first hour was clean. No signals, no pressure, no electromagnetic ghosts hiding beneath the road. Then, 90 minutes into the journey, Jordan felt it. But this time it was different. Instead of a single pressure point, he felt a pattern. Multiple signals, coordinated, spread across a 200-meter stretch of road like a constellation of electronic death. "Contact," he said into his radio, his voice steady despite the ice flooding his veins. "Multiple devices. Count. Uncertain. At least 6, possibly more. They're arranged in a pattern." The convoy halted. Sergeant Reeves, now leading the route clearance team, moved forward with explosive ordnance disposal specialists. They swept the area Jordan had indicated. 20 minutes later, Reeves's voice came over the radio, tight with controlled tension. Confirmed. We have a complex ambush IED system. 12 devices total, arranged in a kill zone designed to channel surviving vehicles into secondary blast areas. This is the most sophisticated setup I've seen in 15 years. He paused. Hayes detected every single one before we entered the engagement area. The convoy rerouted. The IEDs were neutralized. The senator completed his visit without ever knowing how close he'd come to becoming a statistic. And Private Jordan Hayes proved something that no medical report, no evaluation board, and no rejection letter could erase. Sometimes what the world calls broken is exactly what it needs to survive. 3 years later, Jordan stood in a classroom at Fort Benning, Georgia. He was no longer Private Hayes. He was now Sergeant First Class Hayes, decorated combat veteran and instructor in advanced route clearance operations. But more importantly, he was living proof that disability is often just ability that hasn't found its proper application. The equipment will fail you, he told the new students seated before him. The training will fail you. The intelligence will fail you. At some point in your career, everything you've been taught to rely on will let you down. He paused, letting the words sink in. And in that moment, you'll have to rely on something else. Instinct, intuition, the strange, indefinable sense that something is wrong even when you can't explain why. A young soldier in the front row raised his hand. Sergeant, what if we don't have that sense? What if we're not like you? Jordan smiled. It was a question he'd heard 100 times. You do have it, he said. Everyone does. But most people never develop it because they never have to. They have equipment, training, and 2 fully functioning ears to rely on. He tapped his right ear. I lost this, and in losing it, I found something I never knew I had. Not because the injury gave me a superpower, but because it forced me to pay attention to signals I'd been ignoring my entire life. Your weakness became your strength, another student said. No, Jordan corrected gently. My weakness revealed a strength that was always there. The injury didn't create my ability. It just removed the distractions that kept me from noticing it. He walked to the front of the classroom, his movements confident and easy. Every single person in this room has something unique. Some ability, some perspective, some way of seeing the world that no one else has. The question isn't whether you have it. The question is whether you'll pay attention when it tries to speak. He pulled up an image on the screen. A dirt road in Afghanistan, marked with small red flags indicating where IEDs had been buried. This road was swept by the best detection equipment in the world. $1 million machines designed by the smartest engineers in America. They found nothing. He advanced to the next slide. The same road, now marked with 12 red flags. I found 12 IEDs the machines missed. Not because I'm smarter or better or special, but because I learned to listen to something the machines couldn't hear. He looked at the students. The military will teach you to trust technology. Trust your training. Trust your equipment. And you should. But never forget that the most powerful weapon you have isn't the rifle in your hands. It's the ability to sense danger before your equipment tells you it's there. Listen to the part of you that says, something's wrong, even when logic says everything's fine. Trust the instinct that makes you hesitate before you can explain why. Pay attention to the signals your body sends, even when they don't make sense. Because someday, that inexplicable feeling might be the only thing standing between your team and a threat no machine can detect. He paused, letting the lesson settle. They called me broken. They called me disabled. They told me I'd never be a real soldier. His smile was quiet, confident, earned. I saved 417 lives by being exactly what they said I couldn't be. Your weakness isn't your limit. It's your beginning. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The classroom was silent. Not the silence of boredom, but the silence of understanding. Because everyone in that room had just learned the most important lesson the military would ever teach them. Sometimes the most dangerous soldiers are the ones who learn to fight with what they lost, not what they kept. And sometimes the person everyone overlooks is exactly the person everyone needs. If you believe in turning weakness into strength, type Seeker in the comments below. If this story moved you, please subscribe to Veterans and Heroes Stories for more true tales of courage and resilience. And remember, the world will tell you what you can't do. Your job is to prove them wrong. Until next time, stay strong, stay proud, and never forget those who serve with everything they have, even the parts others call broken.